Good morning. I'm doing this devotional inside rather than out on the deck and using my computer rather than the new camera. The main reason is it's almost 100 degrees out on the deck already this morning at 9:15 and I have a neighbor that's firing up their diesel RV getting ready to take off, and so there's a little bit of noise, a little bit of heat out there. So I'm going to do it like this, more informal, and then I'm going to go and fix a cup of coffee and begin to prepare for Sunday. Some announcements that we need to make, which we're very, very happy about. I'm actually ecstatic about, and that is that we'll be back in the ballroom. Now we're going to do it in two stages. This coming Sunday, we were going to do communion out on the parking lot at 8:30 in the morning, but because Jill, and I think we owe Sharon O'Leary a great vote of thanks, and Jill in allowing us to be back in the ballroom. So we're going to do communion in the ballroom this coming Sunday at 9:13, and starting like we always do. And it'll be a brief service. We'll just have a little bit of singing, and we'll celebrate the Lord's table together, and then we'll be done. And the reason for that is that we are also going to record our normal Sunday morning service, and it'll be on YouTube and Faith Life and Facebook, just like always. So this week, as far as the Sunday service goes, it's going to be just like it always is, out on the web, pre-recorded. And then we'll also come to the ballroom at 9:13 Sunday morning to celebrate communion. And then from then on, we will do our service in the ballroom. We won't pre-record it. We'll be in the ballroom, but we're going to live stream it using our new equipment. And so it should be up on YouTube and Faith Life and perhaps Facebook as well. But we'll be live streaming it, so you'll want to, those of you that are away from Happy Trails, you'll want to try to sign on at 9:13 our time, Arizona time, and be a part of the service as it happens. Now, if you can't be there at that time, it'll also be on those websites as a pre-recorded. Even though we're live streaming it, it will be available for viewing for a while after we're done. So those are changes coming up, and we'll tell you more about it as time goes on. We want everyone to be really well informed about what is going on. And I want to talk just briefly this morning for our morning worship time. Sarah and I read the last chapter of 2 Timothy. Now, 2 Timothy was written by the Apostle Paul from his second imprisonment in Rome. And this was an imprisonment that was going to be the end of his life. God had revealed to him that the time for his exiting the earth was drawing near, and Paul knew he was wrapping up his ministry. And you would think that would elicit some anxiety on his part, but notice how he writes in verse 6 of chapter 4 of 2 Timothy. He writes, "I'm being poured out as a drink offering. I have finished my race. I have kept the faith." And then he ends that chapter in his concluding remarks, "The Lord will bring me safely into his heavenly kingdom." Now, the world was still a very chaotic place. Rome was persecuting Christians. Large stadiums were places where Christians were tortured, given to the lions, crucified alive, and burned alive. And it was a very bad time in the history of the Roman Empire as far as Christians go and as far as Jews go. He was killed between 64 and 66 AD, and Jerusalem was destroyed 70 AD. So the world was very chaotic. It was a very difficult time for Paul and all of the disciples of Christ around the world. And yet he was able to say, with everything undone, there were still churches that could be planted. There were still people to win to the Lord. But Paul was able to say, I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. And I know, though he was going to be executed, he was able to say, in spite of all that, I'm not anxious, because I know that God will see me safely into his presence. And we have going on around us the remnants of this virus that we are dealing with, and all the restrictions at home, and you may be getting tired of, weary of being sequestered in your home, wondering, is it safe to go out? And we also have the riots now in the cities and all that's going on. In due course, all of that is going to be dealt with, and the virus is going to run its course. The rioting, the law enforcement is going to get to the bottom of those that are inciting the riots, and eventually peace will be restored. But as I've said repeatedly, there isn't going to be any Shangri-La on the earth. And I think here in the United States, things are going to be different. We're not going to go back to just the way things were before. It's now going to be different. Does that remove our peace of mind and our peace of tranquility that we receive the Lord? And I don't believe it does. I think these riots and the virus, these are things from the earth, and the earth is quivering under the onward march of man's sinfulness and rebellion. Ever since man rebelled against God and walked out of the Garden of Eden, and since then he has tried to be king over his own life, over his own destiny, and it has not worked. And we see around us this frustration that's resulting in the riots, not only here but around the world. Really, there's a lot of unrest, and mankind is still trying to find its way separated from his creator, and it's always going to result in chaos and turmoil. And we don't need to do that. We don't need to fear the future. Paul did not fear the future. Jerusalem was going to fall. It was going to be destroyed. The Jews were going to be scattered all over the world. The Roman government was going to increase its persecution of Christians. It was going to be a very problematic time. But Paul had peace. He was able to say, none of that is preventing me from finishing my course. None of that is preventing me from keeping the faith. I am going to keep the faith. I'm going to keep on keeping on. I'm going to do what God has called me to do. And I'm okay with what's going on, Paul says, because I know that even though he's revealed to me that I'm going to die here in prison, and he was beheaded, regardless of the circumstances of my death, God is going to see me safely into his kingdom, into his heavenly kingdom. And that's God's promise to you and me. This week, I had the privilege of sitting down Monday morning with Lois and Boots Gabauer. They were in the process of making a very difficult decision. Boots' Parkinson's has progressed to the point where Lois can really no longer keep Boots safe at home, even though they love each other and they love being in each other's presence, decades of marriage and oneness, and we sat together and we prayed, and they were both able to thank the other for the decision being made that day Boots was going to move into a group home that would be better equipped to keep him safe and not falling, and Lois would now be able to get rest at home. Were they happy about being apart? No, they weren't. They have not been apart, and this was all going to be new territory for them. But they had peace, and we had a wonderful time together of prayer, and they were just able to be so grateful to the other one for making this decision. Boots knew that it was going to be best for Lois. Lois knew it was going to be best for Boots. And so they were embracing this change that was coming at them because they were trusting God. They were filled with peace because they knew that God was leading them in this decision, and that He was going to be with Boots in the group home. He was going to be with Lois at home. He was going to guide their time of visiting, and it was just going to be a much more pleasant time for both of them, even though they are apart. And so they were trusting God. They were leaning into this change that was coming in upon them, making the best decision they could for the both of them, and they were trusting God. So they had peace. There was such a spirit of peace in that home as we prayed together, and that's our life on the earth. As we move through these stages of life, our health is going to deteriorate. We're going to face battles that we didn't really want to face. But if we trust God for our future and we lean into these changes, instead of a feeling of chaos and turmoil, we have peace and love and a sense of calm, knowing that God is, whatever happens, God is going to lead us safely into His kingdom, and He's going to allow us to finish our course, finish the fight, keep the faith, and receive that crown of righteousness reserved for us in heaven. So I don't know what's going on in your life, but we don't need to look around and be filled with anxiety because of the riots or the virus or anything else that's coming our way. God's going to walk with us. Nothing's going to prevent us from finishing our course, from finishing the fight, and nothing is going to prevent God from seeing us safely and securely into His heavenly kingdom. So I hope that brings you peace and calm today. I'm feeling that sense of peace and calm. No matter what's going on around, we do have this promise from God. So God bless you, and hang on to that truth. For those of you that are in Happy Trails, we'll see you on Sunday morning through the recording, but we'll also see you live in the ballroom at 9:13 to celebrate communion together. So God bless you. I hope you have a good rest of the week.